And we're going to talk this afternoon about alternatives to the mainstream view of what health and vitality and energy and all these things are all about. Because we tend to have a very crystallized view about what health is all about. We go along to our doctors who don't really understand all that much about these things, but we put our faith in them, and they tell us just to take these pills or to submit to this scalpel or this operation or whatever, and we just tend to go along with that. So welcome, Teresa. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I think it would be very useful to start this discussion by just looking beyond the physical body that we all inhabit, and to look at how this impacts on our health and well-being, particularly that energetic, energizing principle that we all have called the etheric body. Can we start with that and get you to just give us your thoughts on how this works and how it operates?
Thank you for inviting me, Tim. This is a subject dear to my heart. It's been a life's work. And I began training in typical Western paradigm of health, and have moved gradually over the years to a more and more esoteric view of health, and with the idea of bringing the two together. And really, we've got to take a step back and look at our world paradigm to understand our current health paradigm. And so in especially our Western world paradigm, we tend to see the world in a mechanistic way, as if the world is a machine, we are machines, and those are quite separate. There's not really a concept of everything being connected. We are individual, isolated entities. Whereas a true understanding of health from an esoteric point of view comes from the understanding that all is energy, just vibrating at different frequencies. And we know this from Blavatsky's work. Science is agreeing with this. There's so much unity consciousness growing at the moment. It's really encouraging. And when we look at health from an energy point of view, everything in everybody is connected. So that means within your own physical body, all parts are connected. So when we go to a hospital and we have a problem with our throat, and we're sent to the ear, nose and throat department, but they don't look at any other part of the body, they can't heal holistically because they're not looking at the whole. And certainly not looking at the effect of the emotions, the mind, what's going on for the person in terms of their psyche. So we have our physical body, which is a low vibrational energy. That's why it appears dense, although we are mostly space. We're 99% space, but we appear and feel solid. And then surrounding that physical body, we have an etheric body, which is our energy field. It's part of the aura, and it interpenetrates with the physical body at major energy centers or sites we call chakras. And this is also where we have a connection to the energy that we live in. So the prana or the chi or the energy soup or the plasma, the electric universe, all of these ideas all concur when you look at them. This energy comes into our body, this vitality that originally comes from the sun, but beyond the sun's energy comes from entities greater and greater, and the energy, there is no end to this energy universe, multiverse that we live in. And so the energy comes into your physical body through the chakras, and then there's a system of channels, like pathways, subtle pathways called meridians. And you've probably come across meridians if you've ever had acupuncture or acupressure, because both the Indian Ayurvedic and the Chinese systems of medicine tend to work on health through freeing up the energy flowing through these subtle pathways or meridians. And those meridians connect different parts of the body. And this is the idea of a holistic body, why you can work on someone's feet or ears and affect the whole body or specific parts of the body, because each cell is like a hologram of the whole. And through that network of meridians flows this subtle energy, this vitality, this life force energy. And that's what gives your physical body its health. That's what gives it its life and its vitality. So the difference between a live body and a dead body is simply the absence of this etheric body, of that life force principle. And then associated with the spine, connecting the major chakras, is a series of channels we call nadis that come up from the base chakra and they cross at each of the major 7 chakras like this, coming all the way up to the Ajna chakra here. And that system, and then there's a central channel. That system is another system of this subtle energy, very linked to your spiritual development and the unfolding on your spiritual path. So you have this etheric body giving your physical body its health. And that etheric body is connected to the energy of all living things around you. So my etheric body is interacting with the etheric body of this plant. We're all interacting with everything living in our environment. And this is where, if we start to understand our health in terms of energy, we start to see a much bigger, more holistic picture. And the other thing to realize is that we have this etheric body, and then we have an emotional body. So the sum total of all our emotions, in Theosophy, we call it our astral desire body or our astral desire nature. And we have a mental body, and that mental body can be sort of individualized, but it is also connected universally to like a universal body of information or mind. And all of this, the soul energy of the individual, can pour through these bodies in as much as they are open and clear and the channels are open and clear. So my understanding of health from an esoteric point of view is in the Alice Bailey teachings, especially the volume Esoteric Healing, the master says that 99% of dis-ease, so disease in the body, is created by the emotional astral body. So this is its origins. So it still manifests as a physical problem, but its original origins are found in this emotional astral body. And the emotional astral body and the etheric body are very interlinked. So if you've got problems in your emotional nature and your blockages in your emotional flow of energy, it will affect the etheric body, which will affect the physical. And if it goes on for long enough, you get dis-ease. You get the dis-ease process occurring. So this is a lack of harmony between our form and our life aspects. Or you could say that all disease is a result of inhibited soul life. And the healing is the release of the soul energy to be able to pour down through, because our etheric body is infused with energy by our soul, in as much as it is clear. And it's often mental and emotional blockages that create actual energy blockages in those meridian systems or in the chakras. The chakras may be spinning too fast, too close, too open, that cause the imbalances that eventually result in physical disease. So in Western medicine, they target the symptoms with drugs or surgery or what have you, but they don't go to cause. And this is why quite often, as they target one thing and fix that, they create other problems. And this is changing. There are more and more medical practitioners now, for example, who will use herbs or who will use acupuncture or who use a more complementary, more holistic approach. And Western medicine, don't get me wrong, Western medicine is fantastic for diagnosis, absolutely technologically A1 for diagnosing. But I would say not as good for treating cause and for treatment. So I would say to people, use it for diagnosis and then go and research yourself. Look at the emotional causes of the particular condition you have, and then look at your options for treatment, because there might be something that's more holistic. And I've seen, you know, quite miraculous healings when people work in their energy field.
So to what extent can the manipulation or the alteration of these etheric or emotional or mental energies, how can they, to what extent can they actually deal with the physical problem? Is there evidence that this can happen successfully?
Yeah, and science is really starting to agree with this, which is wonderful. I watched a YouTube talk yesterday with a doctor, medically trained doctor who works in this area, a gentleman called Gabor Mate. And he was talking about this relationship that science has recognized. And he was saying, we look at anger, for example, and anger, the reason we have anger is when it's expressed in the moment, it's creating a boundary response. So what anger is doing, it's keeping out what is unhealthy and creating a boundary between you and the energy of something else, a situation or a person, saying, I need a boundary here because this is not healthy for me. So in the moment, anger is information. It's telling you something is out of balance. And he was saying unexpressed anger, they've found through many studies, is very detrimental on our immune system. Unexpressed anger that builds up over time in the solar plexus chakra is linked to depression. Unexpressed anger is linked to liver problems, is linked to metabolic and digestive problems. Now, there's a whole new science of, it's called psychoneuroimmunology. And this is looking at the way that our mind and our emotions and our immune function are all one unit. Completely unified system. And this is brilliant because medical science is starting to look at systems in the body as unified. And they're basically saying, if you suppress one, you suppress them all. So if you suppress anger and you don't know how to express it appropriately, or you sort of swallow it down into your solar plexus and it blocks the meridians, this suppresses your immune system. And they've done many studies finding this to be the case. And this emotional repression of anger usually can be traced back to childhood trauma, where anger was maybe not appropriately expressed in your family, or it was something you were punished for. And he goes so far as to say, you know, if as a child it threatened our authenticity, so if we were just being ourselves as a child and saying, no, there's a boundary, no, and expressing our anger, this is authenticity is about being yourself. And he's saying that, you know, if that wasn't allowed, it creates a trauma and a reluctance to express anger, and maybe not even the skills to express it well or in a way that it's heard. And then what happens is when the anger, the unexpressed emotion builds up in the solar plexus chakra and blocks various meridians, you can't transmute that emotional energy. So healthy anger bubbles up in response to a situation that's unhealthy. And remember, your immune system is also a boundary. So anger is a boundary emotionally, your immune system is a boundary physically. And it's saying the immune system takes in, decides what nourishes you and decides what's harmful or potentially harmful and keeps it out. So when you can't emote, and my understanding esoterically is we are designed, emotions, we're designed to express them, to shift the energy from lower chakras to higher chakras. From the personality self, it's transmuted to a soul level of understanding. So if, say, you get angry in a moment, if you damp it down, you don't express it, you don't express your authenticity, your true self, you don't express your boundary and you push it down, what happens, that anger blocks the solar plexus chakra. And there's no opportunity to transmute the anger up into the heart. Now, when you transmute anger up into the heart chakra, you get the opportunity to come to a place of compassion, of forgiveness, of understanding the other person's perspective, point of view, that maybe you overreacted, maybe you're just having a bad day, to bring it up into your higher nature, your soul nature. And then there isn't the opportunity to raise it up into the Ajna chakra, where you get the greater understanding. So emotion is not something to fear. It's something that's supposed to flow like water. It causes problems when it blocks. But when it flows, there's this lifting up of the energies through the chakras, opening of the heart, greater understanding, and you reestablish connection with the source of your anger or the person you fell out with. And you integrate and coordinate your personality, and then the soul energy pours through, and that's the healing. Remember, I said that when soul energy pours through, that's healing. So that's just an example. It clears. Yeah.
So what's the relationship then between our etheric bodies and these emotions and these thoughts that we have? Is this the same energy in a finer and finer gradation, or are they separate energies which somehow come together?
No, they're all energy. They have different vibrations, because even amongst, even in, like, if someone walks into the room, I'll give you an example, might be easier. We are all connected energetically. If someone walks into the room and they're angry, you can feel it. You know they're angry. Even if you say, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." You're like, "No, you're not." You can feel it. And that's your emotional energy picking up on their emotional energy. And so these energies, you could think of a person's aura as containing all of these, but they're all interpenetrating and all connected. So when a person's emotionally not okay, this lowers the vibrational energy of their etheric body. It means they can't take in as much vitality. It means that their immune system is suppressed. They're much more likely to have dis-ease. And we do know that suppressed, uncontrolled, or stress emotions cause inflammation in the physical body. And there's a huge body of knowledge now that say most diseases in the West are a result of inflammation, the inflammatory response gone haywire. So think of your it's probably easier to not use the theosophical terms and just think of your aura as the sum total of your, like, it changes moment by moment. So my aura at the moment will be the color of the mental body, because I'm using my mind body, but I'm also connecting through the other bodies. So it's going to be, if someone were to see my aura, they would see the colors of my mental body and the energies and vibrations. They would see the colors and vibrations of my emotional body. They would be able to detect my vitality and therefore, how I am physically.
Can I ask you about environmental factors? For the last 100 years or so,
Yeah.
we've been living in a world increasingly full of electromagnetic radiation of one sort or another, mobile phones, televisions, radio signals, and all the rest of it. To what extent do you think that these impact negatively on people's etheric bodies and actually cause disease? Is there any evidence that this may be the case?
Yes. I mean, it's very controversial, but there is a lot of evidence. There's, huge effects. It was okay when we only had a few devices in the home and we were still out in nature, because there's ways to increase the vibration in your etheric body to raise the frequency, and there's ways that it's decrease. So connecting out in nature is one of the ways that increases. But increasingly, we're living in an electromagnetic soup now. And it's going to, with especially 5G, there's some really worrying reports about what it does to our etheric body. And also, you've got to remember there's natural environmental energies. And what they're finding at the moment, because there's the Earth's sort of etheric body is measured by what's called the Schumann resonance. And that has always been really stable for years. And it's been increasing and fluctuating, and especially in the last few years. And this may be explaining why people emotionally are feeling so fragile. One of the effects, but also our Earth's magnetic poles are shifting. And the energy, that's the electromagnetic energy coming from that, is also very destabilizing. The solar flares from the sun affect our energy field. But very definitely what we're doing with technology, and also the number of hours, and kids sleeping with phones within a meter of them, is part of the reason they believe we're seeing so many more brain cancers and brain tumors, because of the effect of the electromagnetic energy. It's literally interrupting our own etheric energy. And they're also seeing it in the animal and the bird kingdom, and the insect kingdom. They're seeing it, the effects, not just in our kingdom. So it's, I know modern technology is brilliant, but I believe in terms of our health, we're going to pay quite a huge price, because it seems to be the inflammatory response that it's affecting, and especially cancers.
Well, I was going to ask you about this because obviously cancer, the incidence of cancer has gone up dramatically during particularly my lifetime, and most of those listening this afternoon. I think now it's, 1 in 2 people are going to get some kind of cancer during their life. Is there a direct correlation, a direct relationship between this electromagnetic radiation and the increase in cancers? And if so, what do we do about this?
Yeah, so there are studies, especially the studies of populations that lived close by very big sources of electromagnetic energy. A lot of the studies are suppressed, I'll be honest with you, and are maybe not in the mainstream, because obviously there's a lot of money tied up in this industry. But the other thing to be aware of in terms of cancer, I believe cancer there's several things to realize. In Alice Bailey's teaching, she said there's lots of disease processes. There's lots of things that create disease in the body. It can be a conflict between the personality and the soul, for example. It can be as chakras are opening up, it can create inflammation. It can be all sorts of normal processes. But one of the things we need to realize with cancer is we have a war mentality with cancer. Cancer is the enemy. It's like it invades us, and we have to attack it with all our weapons and our chemotherapy and our surgery. And people are forgetting cancer is your own cells. We actually need to love those cells. We need to change, like we need to change our mindset of the whole world conflict situation for health. Cancer is too much life force energy concentrated in an area because it's blocked.
Yes.
So it causes the cells to grow too much. So if we unblock the energy, whether it's an emotional block from childhood, whether it's from a previous life, whether it's something you're thinking, something you're feeling, once we start to heal and unblock the energies, people often self-heal, because the body is designed to self-heal. And there's starting to be research that certain personalities get cancers, and certain personalities get cancers in certain areas. For example, women who get breast cancer tend to be very loving, giving type of personalities, who always sacrifice their self for others. So the breast is designed to nurture and nourish others. So if you're not nurturing and nourishing yourself, that is part of the causation. Obviously, you've got to have we all have cancerous cells in our body all the time. You've got to have the immune system breaking down and the environmental factors. But that causative emotional factor. The other thing to realize about cancer is they're starting to understand that it comes from an inflammatory process as a sort of kick-starts that proliferation of cells. And the other thing to realize, a lot of people don't realize, and I don't know why this isn't taught more widely, cancer cells cannot exist in an alkaline environment. Now, every process in our physical body is optimized in an alkaline environment. And the things that acidify the environment for the cells in our body are the type of foods we eat. So when we have a diet of processed food without much organic, remember, organic foods have their own etheric body. They have a much more vital etheric body around them than non-organic foods. The use of pesticides and fertilizers. When we eat foods that are dead, we're not eating living foods that have that vitality. This all acidifies our body. Alcohol, sugar acidifies our body. Things like smoking acidifies the environment in the lungs. It's part of the reason the lung cancer can get a hold. Stress is the #1 biggest acidifier of body cell environment. And so the way we live, the pressure on ourselves, the stress environment, and remember, we're all connected. So even if you're calm and not stressed, if people around you are, it will affect your energy. You'll pick it up. And we've just been through a pandemic where the whole world was stressed under incredible pressure and fear and division. And, you know, it's a perfect environment for cancer cells to develop. And then add the toxins that were put into the body over that time, and you've got an environment for cancer to flourish. When people raise their vibration, when they heal their emotional traumas, when they change their mindset, when they change their home so that there's more living plants, they're eating more living food, when they change their mind diet. So I say to people, you know, you've got a good physical diet. What's your emotional diet like? How many people do you genuinely connect with? How often do you get a hug? How often can you express your emotions to a friend who will hear you unconditionally? And people's mental diet, you know, where's your information coming in? What's your mental diet like? Are you just watching things that are uplifting and inspiring? Are you finding sources of information that are high quality, truthful, discriminating, or are you just letting any old thing come in off the TV and taking it all in? And then all of these things affect your etheric body.
Can I ask you, Teresa, to what extent do you think that mainstream medicine is starting to take these things on board and starting to understand these things? Is it still very, very much a tiny minority, or are more people beginning to realize that there may be some effect of all this interconnectedness and this, you know, damage to our energies by various bad foods and electromagnetic stuff and our own emotions and everything? Is it actually getting any traction, or is it just, you know, is it just a few people kind of hoping that this is going to change?
It is growing, and it sounds like a very negative thing to say, but as our Western health system deteriorates, more people will look to other options. And so a lot of people are not, you know, they're not getting the answers they want, or the treatment they want, or the results they want through our medical system. And so it's almost like the clients, the customers, the patients are going to drive that. It is becoming more mainstream. A lot of doctors, because of the nature of their organization, can't always work in this way easily and still keep their license. So there's obviously political and there's all sorts of changes required there, but it is changing. You'd be surprised how much more open people are. You know, even 5 years ago, I couldn't talk about a lot of this stuff, whereas now people want to know. You know, they really want to know things like, you know, the concept of using infrared light, for example, you know, to help heal joints and to decrease inflammation in joints. You can buy an infrared lamp that helps to clear the sinuses and the symptoms of a cold. You can use ultraviolet light now for skin rather than surgery. There's lots of ways, tuning forks and frequencies, and people are starting to understand the world in this way. But I think it's being driven more by people watching things on YouTube, people seeking other alternatives. I think slowly the sort of more mainstream, but the trouble is you've got to remember that drug companies make money by keeping you dependent on drugs. If you're healed, they don't make any money. And so they're trying to shut down, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the information and sources of alternative healing modalities and therapies.
Yes, and of course, I mean, organizations like the European Union don't like complementary medicines. People deride homeopathy, herbal remedies, and all sorts of other alternative treatments because of the huge vested interests involved here. I mean, how do you deal with that? How do you actually divest health from big pharma and from all the other big vested interests? It's impossible, isn't it?
It is. I think you have to, and this might be a really good thing. You have to take your responsibility for your health out of the hands of your doctor and the medical system and put it on your own shoulders. Use your mind to research, to find out, because the information is out there. It's not as easy to find, but it is. Use your internal sort of truthometer, which when you have a clear energy pathway and the soul energy is coming through, the soul will help direct you as to what is good, true, and beautiful, what is truthful. It'll resonate. And so the key is people have to take responsibility for their own health and not just accept what they're given or not hand it over to the medical practitioners.
But they almost are like a priesthood, aren't they, these days? We look on them as a kind of a modern day priesthood where you go along to them and they almost have some kind of infallibility in terms of their diagnosis and recommendations for treatment. It's very difficult to say to people, you need to look more to yourself and to listen to your own soul about these things.
And especially because people are so fearful when they're ill. When you're diagnosed or you're aware that you've got something quite serious, it's really hard to lift up into the courage of the heart chakra. We tend to get really stuck in the solar plexus, fear of death, fear that this is the end, fear that we will suffer and have pain, rather than lifting up. And it takes, it's sometimes this can be the reason for illness. It's interesting in the Bailey teachings, the Master Dwal Kul says that disease esoterically is a liberating and purifying process. That's a really hard one to take on board. But sometimes, if this is what a lot of the books and the recommended reading I've given you, if you don't listen to your body, the message gets louder and louder. And for example, if I have something come up physically, my first port of call is, okay, why is it in my ears? Why isn't it in my shoulder? Why is it in my gut, not in my foot? Why is the imbalance, the dis-ease shown up where it has? Because the body talks to us, and the soul sometimes talks to us through the etheric body, through the physical body, when it can't get through any other way. And so, for example, say you've got inflammation in your knee. So then, okay, which knee is it? Because the left side is the feminine, is to go inward. The right side is to express out in the world, the masculine. Okay, it's my right knee. It's something out of balance with how I'm expressing out into the world. My knee takes the next step forward. Is there a conflict in my life about the next step forward? Am I stepping forward in the wrong way, in the wrong direction? Am I scared to step forward? Do you see how I completely, and then once I start unpicking those potential emotional, those messages my body's giving me, then I can go and say, okay, it's inflammation. What can I do to my diet to eat more anti-inflammatory foods? What am I doing in my life that's inflaming me? Who in my life is inflaming me? What situations emotionally, mentally am I in that's inflaming me? Do you see how I'm looking at it completely differently? I haven't even gone near the ibuprofen yet.
Okay, let's well, we've been, I suppose, by some people's standards, somewhat controversial this afternoon. Let's take it back another layer now, if we may. To what extent does our own karma play a part in disease? Does the soul have to inflict disease upon us in a particular life in order to teach us lessons? Or does disease come into our lives through things that we've done detrimentally to other people? Does karma actually play a part in all this, do you think?
Yes, definitely. Well, in esoteric healing, it's given as one of the causes of dis-ease. And it's not even necessarily your karma as an individual. It can be family karma. It can be national karma, but definitely karma is a way of working through the disease process, is a way of working through karma. Yes. Sadly, but it's a tough way.
Well, of course, I mean, it's very difficult. Very few of us are aware of our past lives, so we can't say, well, I've got, a bad hip because of something I did back in the 12th century or something like that. It's not quite as simple as that.
No.
But what you're saying here, Teresa, that the central theme of what you're saying is that we as individuals, by a greater degree of understanding, can take much more control over our own health by understanding issues which are far beyond the remit and the realms of medical science at the moment, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. And, there's a lot of research. There's a lot of wonderful research out there connecting, looking at the mind-body connection. And, as soon as science looks at the mind-body connection, whether they recognize it or not, the soul, the spiritual connection's coming in. It cannot not. For example, there's an organization in America called HeartMath, and they have done a lot of independent research on the effect of the heart chakra, of bringing your heart into coherence. So it's basically bringing your mind frequency, your mental body, into coherence with your emotional body. And what they've found is people who have more heart coherence, and it's a simple meditation technique you use to come into heart coherence, focusing on gratitude and what you care about for 4 minutes will bring you into heart coherence. And what they've realized is there's an electromagnetic field comes out from just your heart chakra that's like a big donut shape, goes right round your body. And this is what we sense in other people. But that electromagnetic field that comes from our heart, which we now know has its own intelligence, its own neural system, its own memory, that electromagnetic field speaks to and influences every single cell in our body. So depending how we are emotionally, that energy vibration is sent to every single cell, and it's sent right down to DNA level. And they've proven that when people are in a loving, open, higher Buddhic nature heart state, it sends really positive energy to the DNA to the point where it can switch off. If you've got DNA tendencies for certain disease states, it switches them off. But conversely, if you're always angry and very negative and fearful, it can switch on disease states inherent in the DNA. And so by living your theosophy, if you like, and choosing to lift up into the heart energies, to express those higher heart energies, to choose love over fear, you are having a positive influence on every single cell in your body. And that radiates out into all other living things that you come in contact with.
Do you think we will reach a situation, obviously not immediately, but do you think we will reach a situation where there will be this huge paradigm shift in how we regard health and ourselves and everything, and don't rely on these industrial healthcare systems that we tend to have in the Western world, where it's, you know, it's just a huge monolithic block? Do you think that will happen within a generation, 2 generations, or is it much further down the line than that, do you
We're
think?
in the transition now. We're, you know, whenever things seem to get worse, you know, it's a good sign. I know that sounds odd, but it means that all that's wrong, almost like the dweller side of things, is coming out into the open. And we're in a real transition at the moment. And the fact that new ideas and new complementary practices and things are being suppressed is a really good sign that they are starting to grab attention and people are shifting. I know in the younger generation who tend to watch more YouTube, or there's so much on there that's really good information, and quite often that's their go-to. So I think, I mean, my understanding is the whole energy, almost like the etheric body of our planet, is shifting, and we're a big part of that, and we cannot be separate to that. So I wouldn't like to say in terms of generations, but we're in it already. I would love to see it in my lifetime. I'm not sure I will. Maybe next time I come back, we'll come back to a completely different paradigm, which would be lovely.
And of course, this all really goes to show that human beings are taught by the society we live in that we're relatively powerless. We can't do anything. We have to rely upon experts and drugs and people who are good at doing operations on people, and that we can't do it for ourselves. But this involves basically people just thinking about it in a fundamentally different way, doesn't it? That they do have power, that they do have knowledge, and that they can actually do something about these things. Yeah.
And I'm not advocating not listening to or going to your doctor or, you know, using the health system. All I'm saying is detach and step back as the observer and find your best options. Don't just hand your responsibility over. Be autonomous, and quite often just that can be the route for healing, because that might be what the illness was about, just more soul energy, more autonomy coming through. And so it is, I see it as sort of empowering people, saying to them, you know your body, and maybe we'll have more a system that's sort of more of a hybrid, where we have people who you might go to your, say, traditional doctor and get a diagnosis, and then you might have options to go to see someone who can check your energy and check over your chakras. And because anyone who works in energy healing and who is sensitive, you know, can put their hands over chakras and tell if they're blocked. And they can sometimes even get a sense of what the issue is to do with. I mean, for example, since the pandemic, so many more chest and heart, chest and lung problems. And this is grief. We carry grief in our body, in our lungs, in our lung meridian, in this part of the body. And there's grief whenever we have to let something go. It's not just when someone passes. If you lose your job, you lose your relationship, you have to move house. You know, the changes we've gone through, it's almost like people are in continual grief. And this is why so much, and you know, this is where the life force energy comes from. This is where we take air into our body, we take prana into our body, but also through the chakras. And so, you know, I think that people will be empowered. Let's just have a look at this. And sometimes people really enjoy the healing process of unraveling what's going on.
Well, it's now many decades, isn't it, since we first diagnosed this idea of psychosomatic illness. I don't know when this notion first appeared. I suppose probably in the early days of psychotherapy and psychology back in the last century and everything. This is the next great step forward, isn't it now?
In fact, it's written of, I think it's an esoteric healing. It's in one of the Bailey books about what will happen in the future. And we won't do physical surgery. They'll look back now at almost the dark ages that we actually butchered people's physical bodies. We'll do psychic surgery, where people use their heart intention, and they're already doing this in many Asian countries. I've watched a video on YouTube where a woman, they have an ultra scan of a woman, a tumor just around her gallbladder, and they've got 4 practitioners around her giving her sort of healing with the intention for her highest good. And you watch the tumor shrink on the ultrasound monitor. Many cultures, they almost, the team before an operation, because that's the other thing to realize, whenever you have a physical operation, the people operating on you are going through your etheric body. You will have much greater healing if you give them permission. Otherwise, it feels like a violation. Even if you've given permission for the surgery, for example, you've got to, just before the surgery, sort of open up to the idea of letting these people and trusting them through your etheric body as well as into your physical body. And there are many countries around the world where the team before surgery will get together and just connect heart to heart and send energy for the highest good of this person, whether it's to heal or to pass or whatever it is. And so it is coming. It is coming.
Teresa, thank you so much for that. That was absolutely fascinating. And I'm sure that participants may have questions, comments, observations, or whatever. So if you would like to raise your hand in the reactions box or communicate to us in some other way, we'd be, I'm sure, delighted to listen to your questions and comments and everything. But thanks again, Teresa. That was absolutely astonishing. And I think it provides a very, very different perspective from the one that most people are used to. Anyway, we'll start with Janthi. Yes, over to you.
Teresa, this is a very, very interesting talk. And part of what you said, I was able to connect because I'm a big believer in Ayurveda.
Yeah.
So my doctor actually has I mean, this is very strange. I had a back problem. I met with an accident and, I had, several lumbars dislocated. So I went to see this man, doctor. He took, I was in pain. He just took a look at me and said, these are the lumbars in your back that are dislocated. He said even the numbers, without checking my body, without touching me. And he is an Ayurvedic doctor. He was able to he was able to articulate very clearly where the dislocation is. And then, of course, do the treatment. Yeah. So it's a combination of, psychosomatic, and most of Ayurvedic and homeo treatments tend to be psychosomatic, right? Yeah. So they also address other than physical aspects of healing, like meditation. You have to be calm. Yeah. You have to keep away from laptop, and that's another thing that you used to say, keep away from mobile phones and laptop. And of course the diet, you have to have very sattvic diet, which I found personally very difficult because I like all these chili and spicy stuff.
And think about your back. Think your back is the support net, the support system for your body. So if parts of your back are dislocating, that is saying to me, yes, you've had a fall, but why did it affect your back? And there'll be something in your life where your sense of security or safety or being supported will be an issue there.
I fell off the staircase, down the staircase.
And, what I would go back to say, what were you thinking about that your attention wasn't on walking down the stairs? Because that will be a key to the healing.
Apparently, I think I was thinking about work or something else, and I didn't notice that there was water slipped on.
And yet your sore back has probably given you a rest from work.
Yes, actually, this happened so many years ago when I came to UK, and I didn't know. I was in very bad pain. And another friend of mine, he told me, I mean, he was able to sense what was wrong with him, and he did something called transference. He said, you have to walk around till you come down to India. I had about a month's time. he said, I'll transfer this pain to my wife or somebody if she's willing. So you'll be all right till the moment you touch down, you'll be in very bad pain, which happened to me actually.
Mm.
So she was, and after 2 days, he called me again. He was extremely worried because his wife was in very bad pain. She's a close friend of mine. She said she's stuck there. What will she do? Poor thing and all that.
We can actually do this, and this is a whole nother topic, but sometimes we do take on the pain for others. Parents do this for their children. People across the other side of the world can develop a sore back and then find out their father across the other side of the world has just been diagnosed with back cancer. And on some level, they're trying to take some of it for them. That's how connected we are. But that's a whole nother topic.
See, this is where, I have a challenge when usually people say that you cannot take karma. Okay, because if you
not taking karma so much, it's because of the emotional connection you have.
Yeah. But that is, even pain is part of your karma, it gets, so there is always, I personally come from a tradition where I believe your spiritual master or guru has absolute power to take over your karma. And then I think when you become a master yourself, you have to do that for the disciples. It's a very big cycle, okay? So I remember my spiritual master falling sick very, 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 very frequently. Yeah. And he's seasonal. It was in June and December.
People who as people progress spiritually, because your energy field is a reflection of your spiritual development, as to how much soul energy can pour through, and there becomes you become increasingly sensitive, and the veil between you and others becomes less, and so people can take on other people's energies. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Janthi. Very interesting point. Paul, you've got your hand up.
Hello, thank you. Hello, Teresa.
Hi.
A couple of points. What is the significance if, for these chakras that you mentioned, if the lower chakras are out of balance, but the upper chakras, the solar and all the way to the spiritual chakras are doing well?
They can't. Sorry, it can't be that way.
It can.
Okay, I'll disagree with you there.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, but I know somebody who was told this by an Ayurvedic doctor from Kerala.
Yeah. I mean, you are correct in a way. Any one of these there's 49 chakras we know of in the body, but any one of the 7 major can be out of balance. It does tend to be that through lifetimes we move up, opening different chakras. This is why, another reason why so many people in the world, why we have cancer, it's very much a disease of moving through the second initiation, of moving from the solar plexus chakra, and more people are opening the heart chakra and then opening the throat. But you can have that situation, but the energies, how are the energies going to flow through to reach higher centers if the lower ones are blocked? That would be my question.
Well, I can't answer that. I'm asking you. So the thing I'd like to ask, 2 other questions. The power of meditation. I don't know whether you want to comment on that. And then the other thing, of course, is more topical. Lots of people have taken the mRNA gene therapy. So what, is any work being done to see what this is happening on the etheric body?
Oh, that's a big question, because that's one that I've been
Thought it would be
about. Yeah. Okay, I'll start with meditation. Meditation purifies all the bodies. Okay, so especially, obviously, it helps to lift the energies of the lower mind up into the higher mind, and develop those capacities of discrimination, of being able to detach, of not being so attached to ideas, not being so attached to your physical body. And so that capacity to step back gives you the capacity to question, to think about options, to look at your options. So meditation, because it's raising your whole vibration of all your bodies, quite often will bring up emotional things that need healing, or you'll become aware of thought patterns that need healing. You'll become aware that these thoughts in my mind are not serving me, and you'll have the capacity to step back and not give them attention. So to me, it's fundamental to a holistic view of healing. And even, there's a lot of research as to people who meditate regularly don't show the same age-related changes in their physical brains and nervous systems that people who don't. And they certainly, in terms of purifying the emotional astral nature, meditation is key, because it's a way of putting you in contact with your intuition, which is where the soul can speak and let you know where the imbalances are. So you avoid the dis-ease process, because you're already got a conversation with your soul. In terms of the vaccine, obviously I understand what it does in the physical body, and it's not like other vaccines. And my question with it is, messenger RNA is what transcribes or creates proteins in the body. And how the vaccines work, they work, rather than in traditional vaccines, they give you a little bit of the whatever you were being vaccinated against, put it into your body, and your body's immune system would develop a natural response to that. And so this new sort of vaccination technology, they wanted to bypass that and make it quicker. So they didn't give you a bit of the coronavirus. What they did was by transcribing the messenger RNA for the coronavirus, it goes into your cells. Your cells produce virus cells, and then your body attacks your virus cells. And the problem with this is we know that autoimmunity or autoimmune diseases, where the immune system attacks the own body cells, that's the process of autoimmune disease. And so there was a lot of question about the use of this new technology because it's working in this way. What it does to our etheric body, I haven't seen any research. I've seen a lot of research on what it does physically and the reactions people have had and this sort of thing. My feeling on it is, I sense people's energy bodies, and I can tell if someone's been vaccinated or not by their energy field.
My understanding, and I haven't read widely on this, but didn't Steiner predict that they would have vaccines that could effectively cut you off from the soul impulse?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it does in that way. The trouble is, it's something that it would have been really good if we knew before, but I think we're only going to know in hindsight. I don't know what it does in terms of your etheric body. I don't know, except from what I've sensed and seen from just my own observation. I don't know I don't know if it affects soul contact or the soul energy coming through. I know that the fear, that when you're really based in fear, that blocks your solar plexus chakra. So that takes you down into lower personality expression, rather than, if you want to lift up into soul higher expression, you've got to find love. And that's courage, is lifting yourself, lifting your vibration, lifting your attitudes, lifting your thoughts, lifting your feelings consciously out of fear. That's courage. The fear's still there, but you're doing what's right anyway. And you know that if your vibration's high, you're keeping the vibration of other people high. You're lifting others up out of fear. There's a lot of research that says it only takes 15% of the population vibrating up toward a level of love to hold the rest of the 85% of the population out of fear. And this is the only reason we haven't destroyed ourselves so far. So if you want to be part of the 15%, you've got to keep your vibration high, whether it's through the way you live physically, whether it's through looking after your etheric body, whether it's through emotionally, mental, all the way through to your spiritual. It's about living these teachings. that will keep your vibration high. And if you want more specific information on how to consciously raise your vibration, I've got videos on YouTube that I've put in the recommendation, lots of videos on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Teresa. Let's move on to Andrew, if you'd like to bring yourself into vision, Andrew.
Yeah, so you just mentioned that you started more in kind of the traditional Western medicine, and then you kind of or kind of moved into the more esoteric form. Yeah. Was that something you were aware of before going into kind of medicine, or was it something that you kind of...
No, that sort of ecologically evolved. I did 2 degrees. I did a physical education degree and a nutrition degree. And when you do a physical education degree in New Zealand, you do first year med. So well-versed in physiology and anatomy and that sort of thing. And for many years when I worked in the fitness industry, in the health and fitness industry, I was both working in that area, nutrition and diet and exercise and sports nutrition, and also moving slowly as my reading, moving more into sort of, then I trained in reflexology and Reiki, and just kept really, from what I've done since then, it's been my own study. There hasn't been my yoga training, meditation training as well, but it's just been a natural progression. So it gives me a very good broad view, I suppose, and I feel like I love bringing the 2 paradigms together.
Was it anything in particular about theosophy, like in general, as opposed to other kind of esoteric systems or organizations that appealed to your understanding or your kind of search?
It was totally a heart reaction. It wasn't to do with my mind. I mean, my mind, I remember when I read, I can't remember which was the first book that blew my mind. I think it was Intellect to Intuition. I can't remember, but when I went along to the first ever theosophy talk that I went to, my heart just went, wow, yes. It was almost like you're home, welcome home. Whether I've studied it before, I suspect so, but it was heartfelt, absolute. You could say that my whole etheric body was vitalized. I remember going home and I was buzzing. I couldn't sleep. I was so infused with energy. My soul was saying, yes, she's on the right path. That's what it felt like.
Just one last question. As someone who's kind of well-versed in the current kind of discourse around esoteric medicine, what's the best way to kind of avoid misinformation? So avoid people like esotericism in general, I feel like is held back by people kind of perverting it and using it for commercial gain, or, just trying to spread misinformation. So what's the best way to kind of tell a genuine practitioner or researcher from one that's more financially motivated?
Okay, first thing, do they walk their talk? Are they making money? We have inherent within us a ability to recognize truth. When we're in a clear, say you've just been in meditation and your energy channels are open and clear, and you're in a good place emotionally, you can connect to the vibration of truth because you are truth. Because at a soul level, the soul quality is truth. We can recognize that vibration. Now, very clever people will take a little bit of truth and clothe it in a whole lot of false information, and people will still go, there's something in there that's right, because they're picking up on the truth, but it's really difficult. I believe this is going to be the biggest challenge of the coming era, is to discriminate truth from falsehood, because they're becoming, now that we understand much more about psychology, and this has happened in the last 100 years and was predicted that would happen, there's so much more room for abuse of understanding how to manipulate people's minds. For example, there's studies done by the KGB way back in the 60s that said if you bombard people with messages of fear every day for 2 months, you have their mind in your hand and you can tell them anything and they will believe you. You are essentially brainwashed. So, just understanding the power of that, unless the person is consciously aware that you're doing it. And once that consciousness comes in, that observer comes in and say, hey, hang on here. And so really it's very difficult It's one of the most difficult things, Andrew, to find truth. I mean, you know, I'm lucky. I've probably got a background that means I can go, no. But also find out about the person who's presenting the truth. Find out about who they're working for. Find out about how they live their life. You know, research them as a vessel of truth. You know, go and research me. Go and find out if I'm likely to be a person who's speaking the truth. I'm not being paid, but we have to use more of our discernment and more of our discrimination, but it's getting much more difficult, and especially because of these techniques to grab your mind. But if you meditate and keep a strong mind so that you can detach and observe, that's probably the best thing you can do.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Teresa. We'll give the final word, I think, to Anthony, who's had his hand up for quite a long time. If you'd like to, let's have a look at you, Anthony. Yes,
Okay.
over to you.
Thank you very much, Teresa, for the talk, and thanks to Tim for organizing. Some very interesting questions so far. So I just have some questions regarding, I guess, meditation. I don't know if it's appropriate, but for me, after like a very being very calm, I guess, and especially doing body scan meditation, where I direct my attention, there's like a lot of involuntary muscle spasms in the area where the attention is, most often around the face. It's like very consistent. Like I can very easily stop it, but if you kind of relax, that's when it's like very, I guess, energetic, I suppose. And any thoughts on what that could be?
Okay, what I teach in my yoga classes is for people, whenever you've got muscle spasm or pain or something physical trying to get your attention, usually what we do is try and avoid it. And we take something to distract ourselves or get rid of the pain, or we don't go into it. And so I invite people to do the opposite. So if we're stretching in yoga, I'm like, go into the discomfort of the stretch, because this will increase your comfort zone. And when your body feels safe and you've gone into that, it will release. And so what I would say to you is either it's one of two things. The ego mind, or the lower mind, that doesn't want you to meditate and gives you all those reasons why you can't, and is trying to interrupt the meditation, in which case just try ignoring and coming back to your object of meditation. And if you're doing a body scan, if you find areas of the body that are in discomfort, go into that. Do you know what I mean? Go in and just sit with the discomfort and almost like ask your soul, what's going on? What's out of balance here? That's the best technique. So you're not taking your thoughts into it, you're taking your awareness into that part of your body. And I say this to people, you know, if in the relaxation they can't get a particular part of their body to relax, it's just really resisting, go into that part of your body, breathe into that part of your body, breathe out from that part of your body. If it doesn't relax, go in there and ask it what's going on, what's out of balance. And people usually wind up crying because they realize their body's holding on to an energy that's emotional, causing the physical. So the twitching is something, you know, if it's spasm, it's something that wants to release and can't quite, would be my sort of take on that. But
And would you
go into it?
Okay, thanks. So you'd encourage me to just keep the awareness there, I guess, and just continue.
Keep the awareness there with, and you can tell the physical body it's safe, almost giving, you know, if your heart's open and you're letting your physical body know it's a safe place, that can help. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. I think Tony has got his hand up. You need to unmute yourself, Tony. Thank you.
Yes, we weren't quite sure where the information is that you've given about books and things.
Oh, right. What I did was I put a PDF file in the chat that you can click on and download. If that doesn't work, just send me an email and I'll send it to you. But it's just a list of my favorite sources, because a lot of this information is you find more in mainstream literature, people who are researching. For example, Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field, is presenting science's understanding of energy fields, of the infinite potential of this energy field we live in, and her experiments to do with that. And so these are not sort of traditional esoteric books so much as more science meets esoteric understanding type books or sources of information.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Teresa. It's been an absolutely fascinating afternoon, and I think that none of us can go away from this without taking a great deal from it. So thank you again to Teresa, and for your involvement, and for all of you for participating this afternoon. We'll be back in a fortnight's time when we'll be speaking to Dr. Eddie Villamoria about his book, Unfolding Consciousness. So I hope you'll all be able to join us for that. And may I wish you a good week, and goodbye from Leeds Lodge. Thank you.
Namaste.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.